Richmond Raceway is celebrating its 75th anniversary this year. It's been the site of so many thrilling moments, close finishes, and heated rivalries. So who better than Raceway President Dennis Bickmeier and legendary drivers Darrell, Waltrip, and Rusty Wallace to be our guides through that rich history?
Well, when you think back, that's the World War II era, so people were returning home from war, and this was actually a fairgrounds, and it was a half-mile dirt track. And the racing was a big part of the fair that went on here. So that's really where it really started to gain popularity here in Richmond. Really, the 50s ushered in the era of some of the great characters in NASCAR, with Red Byron winning here, or Joe Weatherly, and then the stewardship of the Sawyer family, who purchased the track in the 50s as well. So, and then they took it through many, many decades here.
Dennis, it's pretty crazy. In the 40s, 50s, 60s, the backstretch was lined with trees, and you said fans would climb the trees just to watch the race.
Anything they could do to get a shot of the race cars here at Richmond Raceway. So that's when the track was a half-mile dirt track. I've run into so many people in the time that I've been here telling me stories about climbing the trees down the backstretch. There were some stories of people falling out of the trees, breaking arms, breaking legs, things like that, but they would do anything they could to watch their heroes race right here in Richmond.
Not afraid of heights too, right? I mean, you got a good view up there of the entire track.
Apparently not, and apparently some of them were very creative as well, because they would hoist their coolers up there into the trees as well. It was a long afternoon of watching some racing, so you had to have some cold beverages up there. In the 60s, wow. Well, first off, you got to say, that's the era of 2 races at Richmond Raceway, and we've been enjoying that ever since. It's become a tradition here in Richmond. But again, now you start talking about more of the characters of NASCAR competing here. You had the Pettys. You had Lee Petty, who won in '58, still doing his thing here. And then you had a lot of great drivers coming through here. The Wood brothers from Virginia really helped put Richmond Raceway on the map, but it was also mixed with a lot of local drivers as well.
The 70s belonged to the king.
Richard Petty won 7 consecutive races here, 9 out of 10. He owned the 70s here, and he won 13 times overall here. So the 70s, the king, you're the man, you owned it.
Dennis, so many amazing memories at the Richmond Raceway. One we have to highlight: while leaving pit road, Dale Sr. was wiping his windshield. I mean, that is why he is a legend, right?
Yeah, no question. I mean, to think about it, he's coming out of the pits, he's coming down pit road, everything's happening, going on in the race. He crawls out of the driver's side window. Car's moving, by the way, wiping down his windshield. I mean, so many people that day that I've talked to were like, wait, did my eyes just see that? Did he really hang out of his car, wiping the windshield down while racing's going on the track? Other cars are leaving pit road.
The guy was fearless, and we have to talk about the memory when he wrecked Darrell Waltrip, and Kyle Petty stole the show and went from there.
So he comes out of the pits, and he and Waltrip have been battling back and forth. Again, no love lost between Dale Sr. and Darrell Waltrip. Great rivalry.
Waltrip certainly remembers that day well. It all started with his owner, Junior Johnson.
2 to go, Junior comes on the radio and he says, "Darrell, pass that SOB now." I said, 10-4, Junior. So I'm trying, man, I'm just not having any luck. And Junior comes on the radio and he says, "Darrell," I said, "pass that SOB now." 10-4, Junior. So I drove off into turn 1.
Here's Waltrip, keeps him straight, but he keeps on tapping. Now Waltrip on the inside.
And got wheels down in the dirt, left side wheels in the dirt a little bit. And got under Dale and moved him up a little bit. I don't even think we made contact. Maybe we did, possibly. Made a little contact, moved him up the hill, and here I go. And I'm coming off turn 2, and Dale's over here, and I think, boy, Junior is going to be so proud of me. I just passed Dale Earnhardt. I'm going to win this race, and about that time.
Oh! 4 cars, there it goes.
There's Bo 9 into the fence. Joe Redmond spins around. Who's going to win the race?
Dale hooked me in the right rear and sent me into the guardrail and tore it. Just destroyed the car. And knocked me conscious. I'm not sure it knocked me unconscious. It may have knocked me conscious. But anyway, there I sat, car destroyed. And I looked over, and Dale was sitting over there. He had wrecked too, which was uncharacteristic of him. And anyway, he cranks up, and he gets going, and I crank up. I got this old car, and I'm bobbling around the racetrack. And I come up, the cars are stopped because it knocked a hole in the guardrail. I come up beside the Dale, and I just wham into him. with my wrecked car. And then they cleared the track, got us off the track. And I think afterwards NASCAR fined Dale for being a little rude about the whole thing. Like, oh, we were just racing. No, we weren't just racing. We were just wrecking is what we were doing.
But earlier in that decade, our own Chesapeake, Virginia's own Ricky Rudd won a race here at Richmond, coming off a really bad crash in Daytona. People remember that because he taped his eyes open. He raced the entire race with his eyes taped open, went on to win the race here. So truly remarkable. And then you keep seeing all those big names come to the forefront here in the 80s, right? Guys that are in the NASCAR Hall of Fame now. So the Allisons, you know, Cale Yarborough, on and on. Loved coming to Richmond to race here in the 80s.
In 1988, Richmond Raceway was converted from a half-mile track to the current 3/4-mile setup. Richard Petty himself hopped on a bulldozer to get the transition going.
Now we were into this configuration, so guys were figuring it out and how to race around this 3/4-mile track. And one of the guys that had some success here in the 90s, Rusty Wallace.
Down the straightaway in the backside, but at the line, Rusty Wallace records his second victory of 1989.
Well, Richmond to me is one of my best racetracks. I won there 6 times, and I just love the shape of it. It's a 3/4-mile shaped racetrack that you can race all over that track. And for a competitor like I was, you wanted different options. You know, you just didn't want to rip around the bottom of the track every single lap. It was hard to pass people like that. But Richmond, man, you can run fast on the bottom, fast in the middle, fast up top. But the fans really, really love it.
And they really loved it on September 12th, 1992.
It was a rain delay. I dominated the race, had a rain delay, and we waited about 2 hours. And then the race started. I went on and won the race. But we'd always named our cars all the time. So I won the race, and I pulled into victory lane, and my PR fellow, a guy named Tom Roberts, come running up to me, and he said, I got a name. I said, what is it? He goes, Midnight. Let's name this car Midnight. I go, why? He says, when you cross the line and they drop the checkered flag, I looked down at my little digital watch, and it struck midnight.
Dennis, what a way to start the 2000s. We saw a little bit of a father-son duel here at Richmond. Earnhardt Jr. passing his father.
Yeah, can you imagine what these grandstands were like when Dale Earnhardt Jr. passed his dad to go on and win at Richmond?
Jr. comes by, uses the inside, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. will lead him back to turn 3.
I mean, this place just had to erupt. I can just picture it, just knowing how passionate our fans are about NASCAR, but about those two drivers in particular. So what a way to kick off the 2000s. But I got to tell you, the 2000s really defined by that last chance to get into the playoffs here at Richmond. It all came down to Richmond to get into the playoffs, to maybe win a championship. Jeremy Mayfield in the early 2000s raced his way in. Casey Kane. Jeff Gordon raced his way in a couple of times to grab a wild card spot a couple of times to get into the playoffs. So that focus of being that last race before the chase was really something, you know. A lot happened here at Richmond for those drivers to get into the playoffs.
Dennis, a really memorable moment happened right here when Kyle Busch wrecked Earnhardt Jr. What are your recollections of that night?
Well, I've watched that so many times on video, and those two continue to talk about it. But go back to 2008 in May, Jr. and Kyle Busch going back and forth. Jr. passes him down the backstretch, headed to the checkered flag. They get to about right here, and this is where all the controversy happens. Kyle Busch hits Earnhardt Jr. They crash into the wall somewhere down there, a little bit deeper into turn 3. Clint Boyer goes by and gets the win. And I think the famous line from Jr. was, Kyle Busch is going to need a police escort to get out of here, because the Earnhardt fans were going nuts around here.
We're here in Victory Lane. Dennis, you've been the track president since 2011. You've seen a lot of races. What's your favorite finish?
Well, for me, I've got to go back to April of 2016. So teammates, Carl Edwards, Kyle Busch battling it out. Carl Edwards bumps Kyle Busch out of the way, goes on and wins the race.
It became really tough. You know, do I bump my teammate or just follow him across the start-finish line? So I bumped him, and we got the win. I
would not have wanted to be in that Joe Gibbs Racing team meeting on Monday after that little bump and run to the finish. But I'll tell you something else that was special about that. You get to give Carl Edwards a trophy in Victory Lane. He turned around and gave that trophy to a young fan.
It's like Ryan Blaney giving the checkered flag to a young fan in the stands.
Well, you know, we're all about our fans here, and you know, without the fans, you know, this place would go away, and they've been the heart and soul of this entire facility for 75 years now.
The Truck Series gets rolling at 1:30 on Saturday, and the Cup Series will grab the spotlight on Sunday at 3 o'clock. I'm Natalie Kalibat. Thanks for watching and enjoy the action.